You may have tried Yakult before, that tiny probiotic drink that's easy to grab as a quick snack. It's known for its unique sweet and slightly tart flavor, but what many people don't realize is that this simple little drink actually contains a probiotic strain that's been studied quite extensively. In other words, there may be more going on beneath the surface than you'd expect for something that tastes like a sweet treat. Yakult contains a single bacterial strain called Lactobacillus paracasei shirota, sometimes referred to as Lactobacillus casei. It's essentially the same thing under updated naming. Each bottle delivers a few billion CFUs, which is a solid dose compared to many other probiotic foods that often contain much less. When it comes to potential benefits, Yakult has been studied in a few different areas. For liver health, there's some early evidence suggesting it might help. In people with alcohol-related liver disease, the Shirota strain has been shown to improve certain markers like lipid levels and liver function. That said, the doses used in these studies were quite a bit higher, closer to 3 or 4 bottles a day, so it's not exactly the same as casually drinking one. Yakult has been studied for its potential effects on joint and bone health, and while the evidence is limited, some research suggests it may offer small benefits for pain and function. In one trial, people with knee osteoarthritis who drank Yakult twice a day experienced slight improvements in stiffness, pain, and overall movement. Another study found that patients with rib fractures reported modest pain relief during activities like deep breathing, coughing, and turning in bed. Similarly, in older adults recovering from wrist fractures, drinking Yakult twice daily was linked to small improvements in hand function, pain levels, and the ability to carry out everyday tasks compared to those who took a placebo. Yakult's probiotic has been investigated for immune health, but the results here are mixed. It may offer small benefits for generally healthy, middle-aged adults, but the same doesn't seem to hold true for older individuals or highly trained athletes. For example, one small study found that healthy, middle-aged people who drank Yakult had slightly fewer and shorter colds compared to those who drank regular milk. However, in older adults, drinking 2 bottles a day did not lower the risk of developing respiratory symptoms compared to a placebo. Similarly, research in endurance athletes shows that taking Yakult twice daily does not reduce the risk of upper respiratory infections. Yakult has also been looked at for gut health, but the evidence here is fairly limited. In adults with constipation, daily use does not seem to improve how quickly food moves through the gut, stool quality, or how often people have bowel movements. There is some indication it may slightly soften stools in people with Parkinson's disease, but the effect is small. In people with IBS, Yakult does not appear to improve most symptoms, although it may slightly reduce gas. Long-term research in people with a history of colorectal tumors also found that taking Shirota probiotic for several years did not reduce the risk of developing new tumors compared to not taking it. The story of Yakult goes back to 1930s Japan, when microbiologist Minoru Shirota was trying to tackle a serious public health problem: widespread intestinal infections. At the time, medical care wasn't as accessible as it was today, so instead of focusing on treatment, he focused on prevention. His idea was simple but forward-thinking. If you could support the good bacteria in the gut, you might be able to improve overall health. After years of research, he successfully identified and cultivated a hardy strain called Lactobacillus casei shirota, which stood out because it could survive stomach acid and make it all the way to the intestines alive. In 1935, Shirota introduced a fermented milk drink containing this strain, and eventually founded the Yakult company around a philosophy he called Shirotism, the belief that a healthy gut leads to a longer, healthier life. At the time, Yakult wasn't meant to be a premium product for health enthusiasts or a niche crowd. It was designed to be affordable and accessible to everyone. To bring that vision to life, Yakult adopted door-to-door sales, often led by women known as Yakult ladies, who built genuine relationships and trust within their communities. Over time, this personal approach became more than just a way to sell a product. In some cases, the regular visits and social connection have even been seen as a way to help reduce kodokushi, the tragic phenomenon in Japan where elderly individuals pass away alone and go unnoticed for long periods. With its small, easy-to-drink bottle and distinct sweet tart flavor, Yakult quickly became a part of daily life in Japan. Over time, its popularity spread beyond Japan, expanding into markets across Asia, Latin America, and eventually Europe and North America. It became one of the first truly global functional foods, long before gut health became a mainstream topic. Today, Yakult remains a major player in the probiotic space, with billions of bottles consumed each year, and the original Shirota strain still at the center of its formula. In the end, Yakult's health benefits likely aren't as strong or as reliable as some of the better studied probiotic strains, even when you compare it to other versions of Lactobacillus paracasei. On top of that, each small bottle packs in quite a bit of sugar, close to 2.5 teaspoons, which makes drinking it every day probably not a great idea. That said, one thing that really sets Yakult apart is the amount of research behind it. Most probiotic drinks and snack products have little to no direct studies on their exact formulation. So the fact that Yakult hasn't researched at all, even if the benefits may be somewhat limited, is honestly pretty impressive. Hi, I'm Dr. Brian Yeung. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comments down below. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And if you know someone who could benefit from this, please share it with them. Finally, if you enjoy what we do and want to learn more, consider supporting us on Ko-fi, and be sure to check out our other socials as well.